Towards the end of 1941, they told us that we had to move, and they put us in kind of a ghetto in the same city. And my brother and I and my parents, we had one room, and on the other side of this little apartment was a woman with her son, who was retarded, who was sent away very early because Germany killed all the people that were not normal, Jewish or not. They killed them all. They wanted a perfect race. They didn't want anybody that was imperfect. They wanted a perfect race. And we had one kitchen, we had one stove in the middle of the two rooms that we were able to cook, but it was a ghetto and it wasn't a ghetto because there were only Jewish people living there. And then one morning they picked us up from there and they loaded us into freight cars where they transported animals with. But we were told beforehand that we can take between 3 families, 1 stove, 1 washing machine, and we could take clothing along and we could take everything we wanted to take along. Okay, so naturally we did. They loaded us on the car, but the stuff was not loaded with us. It was loaded onto another car, and by the time we reached the Polish border, after we crossed the Polish border, they said to us, the other car caught fire and they had to disconnect it. So all the stuff that we prepared remained there. They stole it all. They definitely stole all the stuff because it didn't burn. And they were very, very thorough, the Germans. If they really would have used their thoroughness for something else, they would be a world power today. I really believe that. It's just that they used it the wrong way. So I think it took us about 4 or 5 days to get to Riga. After the train ride, they walked us into the ghetto and we were able to get a room for ourselves. The reason there were a lot of empty rooms there was because they had the Latvian Jews in the ghetto before us, and they killed 32 or 3,600 Latvian Jews to make room for the German Jews. One night they killed them. It was a Siberian winter in Riga that year. It was terribly, terribly cold. It was a winter that we didn't know. In fact, it was so cold that we went to some of the apartments or some of the rooms where the Latvian Jews lived in, and the food was still on the tables. It was frozen so solid that we were able to take it back to our place and cook it or heat it up and eat it. And we tried to do the best we could do there. Try to make as normal a life as possible. One of the things I remember, we didn't have much food to eat because they gave out the food. But on Friday evening and Saturday evening, we had a white tablecloth on our table. Our mother thought we didn't have anything to eat, but we had a white tablecloth on the table. So, that must have been the few things that we were able to have on us when we went there. The stormtroopers did not want to be bothered keeping order in the ghetto. They didn't want to be bothered taking care of the Jews. They just wanted to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So there were Jewish policemen and there were Jewish people that were assigning the work. The first thing they assigned me to, with a bunch of other girls, is shoveling snow. In the morning, we got a loaf of bread to take with us, not cut, to divide among us. By the time we got to the place where we were going to move, you couldn't cut the loaf of bread, it was frozen hard. Right now I kind of have to laugh about it. It's not funny, but it was funny at the time. People were wearing colored scarves around their mouths and their nose because it was so cold. But the scarves were not dye-fast. So they had icicles, different colors hanging out of their scarf. If you have a temperature below 60 below centigrade, that's cold. It took about 3 or 4 months before the snow melted, and then we kind of thought that the snow would have never melted because we saw some of the things that they did to the Latvian Jews that were buried under the snow for about 2 or 3 months until the snow melted. And we saw hair and things like that. We wished that the snow didn't melt then. From the ghetto, I was sent to a work camp, and when I came back from that other camp, they had liquidated the ghetto and sent my parents to Auschwitz. I never heard from them anymore. That was it. And I guess they were old and they didn't want old people because old people couldn't work. The concentration camp the name was Kaiserwald, forest after the Kaiser. The man camp was on one side and the female on the other side. There was a double fence between the two of them, and there was an armed guard walking back and forth in the double fence. When we got into the camp, we were showered and we got our prison uniform. The underwear was a tiny white stripe on a dark background, on a dark blue background. And the dress had our number in front of the dress and above the yellow star. But the way it was originally with long sleeves and the number over here. I put the number on here. That was the number that I had. And I made holes in there to be able to put my hands into the pocket into the pants that I had underneath. And I cut this dress. It was too long for me. I started to cut it, and I'm in a barrack cutting the dress when one of the stormtroopers came in, and he saw me cutting the dress, and he gave me such a beating because I was defacing German property. His name was Hirsch, I'll not forget it. He gave me such a terrible beating that people in another barracks that he killed somebody in that barrack. I said, no, he didn't kill her completely, I'm still here. But can you imagine, this dress is 65 years old, and it's still in one piece. The concentration camp itself was not bad because the Germans thought that they could use the barracks for their soldiers when they're coming back from the front. We had bathrooms, which was more than we had in other camps. Our immediate superiors were lifers, German lifers. The superiors were the stormtroopers, naturally. But the ones that supposedly kept the concentration camp in line were our camp eldest was a 3-time murderer. He killed his mother-in-law, his wife, and his child. He was in for life. Then there was one in for grand larceny, I'll never forget. He was in for 18 counts of automobile robberies, okay? I mean, those were our immediate superiors.